Can I ready to start?
Yep, you can. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome everyone for the Green Cell monthly webinar. We have this webinar carried over for every month first Sunday. Today we have a webinar on strong seedlings better produce, and we have few more participants who's be joining us in few minutes. Meanwhile, can you please go watch the video that we have about the Green Cell activities? If you are really interested in that, please contact us and join us.
Divya, can you unmute yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry about that. Thank you for taking your time in joining us today. My name is Divya Jayaraman. I am a new volunteer in Green Cell Atlanta, and I'm honored to be a host today. Welcome to Green Cell's webinar on strong seedlings. Green Cell is a volunteer-run nonprofit organization. We are passionate about raising awareness of human-created environmental issues and promoting conscious consumerism. As a part of our efforts, we run several community projects such as cleanup drives, food rescues, and recycling campaigns. Our objective is to help everyone incorporate small and or big green changes in our daily lives, which will go a long way in introducing our negative impact on the environment and the natural world. Simply put, our aim is to help everyone go green. We conduct regular webinars on varied topics ranging from composting, growing your own food, recycling right, hydroponics, sustainable energy, several areas where we can make changes to reduce the carbon footprint. These webinars are held on second Sunday of every month. Kanar, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, for the next month's webinar we have it on September 12th, 2021 by Seth Cunning on topic solar energy, clean and green. Please do join us to learn more about the solar energy. And for today, we are going to see about the strong seedlings and better produce. And we have our guest as Rani Arun, who's a very good passionate about home gardening. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, who loves gardening and consider it her passion. This journey of hers is initially started as a backyard gardener after her first child was born, perhaps was a nesting instinct. And she hasn't looked back since then. Association in Association with passionate gardeners over the years further enhanced her knowledge, commitment, and motivation for this environmentally friendly endeavor, even helping to reduce the carbon footprint, which she leaves behind in her own small way. This has enabled her to experiment and learn new concepts as well as a regular basis. One of them being the topic of growing saplings using indoor grow lights recently. Our speaker, I'm sure she's very happy to share her experience with others so they can try and know how to do so far themselves. Personally, her background has been in software engineering, information technology, of late also teaching yoga. I personally, I have failed in so much of seedlings. So I think I'm also going to learn with you all. Before we start the webinar, we have some house rules. We want everyone to be mute so the speaker can convey her messages easily without any interruption. And if you do have any questions that you have for Rani, please do put your message in a Zoom chat or YouTube chat. Our volunteers are constantly be watching the chat windows, and they will make sure all your questions are answered. If you have any questions after the session, please email to us at greencellatl@gmail.com. Once again, a warm welcome to our speaker, Rani Arun. Rani Arun, it's all yours.
Thank you, Divya. At the outset, I would like to thank GreenCell for organizing this webinar. Giving me an opportunity to share my experience about grow light seedlings. As we have limited time, just about 45 minutes or so, without further ado, I'll just go to my presentation so we can start learning about how to grow seedlings.
Seedlings are really a very difficult part of gardening. I personally feel that. So hopefully we'll get more information from you to make it more easier.
Yes, I would certainly think so. After this presentation, I hope it gets easier. I was also under the impression that it's going to be difficult, but once I was able to implement it, I really feel that it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. So yes, growing seedlings really helps to get better produce. So today we'll be covering on a few topics on how I started gardening, just a brief summary on how it all began and how I kind of leaned towards growing my own seedlings. Then we are going to touch a little upon how actually to germinate seeds. We will talk a little bit about outdoor seedling setup versus indoors, the benefits and the advantages and the disadvantages. Then we'll get to the actual grow light setup, the installation, the materials needed. We'll then move on to how the seedlings are supposed to be germinated, cared for, and the final step next is transplanting. Lastly, we'll talk about preparing for the fall seedlings. And finally, of course, Q&A. So the first section is a little brief summary about how I started gardening. Like most of you, I also started small in raised beds, started with a couple of beds. Since I didn't know much about seedlings or growing from seeds at the time, like all of you, I also went to the local gardening stores and picked up some seedlings that I was interested to grow in my garden. And I just bought them home, planted them, and I had reasonably good success. The first couple of years, there was no issues because my garden was new, my soil was good. and the pests had not really identified my garden yet. So the saplings produced well. It was not bad. But from the third year onwards, I started noticing that my seedlings or my saplings or the plants, when they actually grew, weren't doing as well as they did the first couple of years. And that's probably because they started getting diseases. There were more pests attacking the plants. And I wasn't really sure why it was happening. Then I thought maybe I should start using some seeds because gardening stores had seeds there. So I started trying to use them, but then lack of information on how and when and how to care for them. All of these missing pieces of information didn't give me much success in growing from seeds. So a little intro on how I started learning about them, if you also want to go about doing it the same way, is by joining a local gardening group. That really helps. There are a lot of experienced people there who are more than willing to share their information and knowledge about it. They've been growing for many years now, and so that will help. Also, social media sites like YouTube and others, internet, will give you information as well on how to look for seeds and grow them from start. That's how I started. And then I started experimenting with a few seeds like tomatoes, which were reasonably easy to grow, not that hard. But there wasn't much success when I came to peppers and eggplants, especially, and some of the others, chilies. They were a hit and miss. Sometimes they would work, sometimes they wouldn't. Now, after that point, I started to talk more with a friend who knew more about them. And for the first time, grew some seedlings over the winter rather than the spring. And with reasonably good success, I was able to know more about germinating the seeds, taking care of them, transplanting them. So I got quite a bit of information that season. The last point about greenhouse is an optional thing because I found that having a greenhouse would be useful when I was doing my fall seedling growing because it just gave me extra room to house them as my garden was still having all the spring and summer plants. This is an optional thing. It just was something that worked for me. So based on the information that I was learning from all these different avenues, I was able to see that there was a lot of benefit in growing my own seedlings. The very first one being you get to choose what you're growing. You can choose from a variety of seeds that you really want to be growing in your backyard, and you're not limited by what the local gardening stores are offering. So you have that as an advantage. And then I also found that you can choose from a variety of seeds that are disease resistant, that are appropriate to your zone. And you can also choose from heirloom, hybrid or non-hybrid based on what you prefer. So there was that choice. The second important benefit is that I found that when you grow seedlings from seed by yourself, the saplings turn out to be much stronger. They are healthier. So when you have healthier saplings, they are more disease resistant. Bacteria and fungus infections are less, and even pests tend to attack stronger plants less. So as an obvious consequence, you have a much better yield and a longer producing duration. The third benefit is some gardeners try to extend the growing period by getting an early start. They start germinating in the month of February itself, and then they tend to transplant a little earlier before the frost date by using frost covers and such. So if you're one such gardener who wants to extend the gardening period and want to get an early start, seedlings is the way to go. Last but not the least, and the best reason for all, I would say, is it's just more cheaper. You buy one sapling from the gardening store and you have to pay about $4. And for the same $4, you can buy a whole pack of seeds. And you can grow as many saplings as you want to. So that's a win-win situation right there. So the benefits of growing your own seedlings, I would say, far outweigh what you can buy from the gardening store. So let's move on to the next section, which is about learning how to buy the seeds, or the basics of seed starting. The very first being the quality. This is an important factor. There are many stores selling seeds in their facility, but buying from online stores, reputed stores which guarantee the quality of the seeds, I found was a better bet for your money, just because they know what they're doing. So they know the kind of seeds they're selling, and also it's disease free. They know a lot about the seeds they're selling, so a lot of descriptions are available online. And also you find a lot more variety than what you would find in your local store. So I would definitely recommend buying from some online reputed sources. The second piece of information that you need to be aware about is when to grow a certain seed. So there's the broad category of spring seeds, summer seeds, and fall seeds. And within each of those seasons, you need to know exactly when you want to start germinating a certain seed. So that information is essential to have for success in germinating the seeds. The third factor is the medium that you're going to use to sprout the seeds. I'm going to talk a little bit more once we go a little further, but that's another important factor. The fourth one is a very important factor, which is temperature. I mean, every seed has inbuilt in them a kind of a sensor when they know it's time to sprout. And so we are kind of mimicking that environment, either outdoors or indoors, to kind of fool the seed into thinking it's right to grow right now. And so temperature is important. It provides the right environment or the right ambience for the germination to happen. Last but not the least, in seed starting is watering. You cannot overwater or underwater your seeds, because over will tend to rot it and under will dry it out and kill it. So these are some of the important things to keep in mind when you're thinking of germinating seeds. The next section talks about indoor versus outdoor seedling growth. This is a debatable topic. There are a lot of experienced gardeners out there who do an excellent job growing their seedlings outside. They create milk jugs and environments that are fit for growing seedlings outdoors, and it works well for them. So I'm not going to say that outdoor is a bad thing, but this is just something that I found really convenient, growing seedlings indoors. So we'll just touch on a few things about the advantages and disadvantages of either one of them. So the issues that I found while growing seedlings outdoors is that the main thing was the temperature. You know, it's just inconsistent. I mean, when you're starting your seedlings in spring, which will be in the months of February or March, it's either too cold outside, and then in fall, you'll be starting sometime late summer, and it's going to be too hot outside. So you'll have to deal with that and find the right spot for your seedlings. So I was a little too lazy to do that. So I just found that, you know, indoors would be much better because it has consistent temperatures all year round. The second point is about pests and other insects. Especially this is not much of an issue for your spring saplings, but it is for your fall saplings, because the summer brings in teams of pests and diseases. And so when you're trying to grow your fall saplings, you will have to contend with all these different insects that I've listed here, from pillbugs to butterfly larvae, moth larvae, and the bigger ones like birds and squirrels, and of course, flea beetles, etc. The third issue about growing outdoors is that you don't have any control on the weather elements. So there is inconsistent germination. Even if you buy quality seeds from good stores, you will not have, I mean, even though the seeds by themselves will guarantee to be 95 to 100% germination, but because of the inconsistent weather outside, you may not see that rate achievable. The next one is about what I found were the advantages of growing the seedlings indoors. The first and foremost, the temperature. It's consistent temperature, irrespective of the season. It's weather controlled inside, so you have no issues there at all. The second thing is there's absolutely no pests. The only thing I found were like tiny gnats when the saplings were growing up a bit. But as a gardener, I think we don't have to get that fussy about them. They don't harm the plants in any way. The third point is easy access. I just love this factor because you don't have to step out. You don't have to step out in the cold in the months of February or March, or in the hot weather in the months of July or August. You have easy access. It's right there indoors, wherever you decide to set up your grow light system. And it's easier when you have easy access. It facilitates checking for water or adding nutrients, or even checking if the seeds have sprouted more readily. You just have to walk up to it. So I found that factor a real benefit of growing things indoors. The next one is the estimation. You can easily find the variety that you're growing, how many you're growing, and what you're growing. When you do things outside, you tend to lose the markers that you have put, or you don't have the interest to go and look in detail to see what you're growing once you have put the seeds, and you kind of lose that estimate of what you're growing, and since you don't know how much are going to germinate out of all those seeds, you may lose count of the quantity as well. But when you're doing it indoors, it's all intact, and so you have better estimation of both these factors. The last is about the germination rate, which is much higher compared to outside, because you have control over the weather elements. And so if you have good quality seeds to start with, your germination rate automatically is also quite close to the germination rate guaranteed by the seller. So these are some of the benefits of growing indoors. And for that reason, the next section, which is grow light setup, the actual setup.
Before you go with the next one, just because the question that I had was appropriate for the indoors and outdoors, we also had a question from a member saying that they try to do samplings outdoor in the ground, and they are not successful with that. They want to know what's wrong with that.
Okay, that may be another webinar, because growing seedlings outdoors is a whole different thing than growing indoors. And as I was mentioning, some of the disadvantages of outdoor seedlings, there's the weather element, the temperature. It might have to do with the soil setup, the medium that they used. It can be a number of factors. So I'll have to talk with the person on a one-on-one basis to figure out what went wrong, depending on how she was growing the seedlings. But generally, I feel outdoor requires a whole different webinar for how to do it. So I'm kind of focusing on the indoor seedlings at this time.
Thank you.
So moving on to the grow light setup, the first and foremost, of course, is very obvious. You need a grow light. Now, I want to mention that the one difference between growing seedlings outdoors and indoors is the fact that outdoors has free sunshine. So we have to mimic that sunshine indoors when we are doing the seedlings indoors. So that is why you'll need the grow lights. So that's one difference. So when it comes to grow lights, there are a variety of options to choose from. So as you can see in the pictures, they differ by color, size, shape, the number of lights that you can buy. They're all available on Amazon, by the way. And depending on the setup that you have in your house, you will have to see which one works best for you. I can show you the setup that I have used, but that's what worked for me and the area in my house. So I would highly suggest that you first identify an area in your house where you can grow your indoor seedlings, and then go about getting the right grow lights for it. So as we go forward, you'll learn, I'll tell you a few more things about how to choose the area. So basically you have the colored ones. These are all meant for grow lights. I mean, meant for seedlings. So you don't have to think twice about buying them with regard to the configuration like wattage and lumens and voltage. But if you buy a light which is not meant for seedlings, you will have to check the lumens and the wattage just to make sure they don't burn your plants. But these ones can be bought as is. So a few other materials that you'll need is the heat mat. The heat mat helps to provide the necessary temperature for your seedlings. So you'll be filling your seedling trays and placing them on this heat mat. And I will show you how that is in a short while. The next item is shelving. This is also something that's optional. It's just more convenient to have a shelf because you can just approach it easily, and based on the number of tiers that your shelf has, you can place the saplings under the grow lights conveniently. So you can use either metal or plastic. I have heard that Costco has a good plastic shelving available. Or if you don't want to do the plastic, I mean, if you don't want to do the shelving, and if you have adequate ground space, like in a basement, a temperature controlled basement, or any other part of your house, you can use that area for your seedlings as well. You don't have to use a shelving for that in that situation, and you can just get the ground, just the grow lights, and make sure you can hang it over that space. The last few items are the seedling trays, of course. Most people, if you're a gardener, you probably have seedling trays. I'll show you the one that I used for my seeds. And also a good seed starting medium. You really need to have a good seed starting medium for your seeds to germinate well. Now, coming to the specific materials that I have used, the first one, as you can see, is the B-Bounder 4-pack linkable LED utility shop light. So it wasn't really meant for seedlings, but I just found it adequate for my purposes. And the size and the weight of it was also something I looked into. And for that reason, I went ahead with this particular brand, and it has worked really well for me. I have no I don't have any problem recommending it. The next item is the heat mat. This is the particular brand I went with, Vivosun Durable Waterproof Seedling Heat Mat, and it's 10 inches by about 21 inches and costs $12. So I'm now going to go and show you these items.
So all these, like, we can find it in any store, Rani, or like it is like, do we know to see for any specific stores?
The shelves, I think you can get in Costco or Walmart and Target, stores like that. The lights, I went and got them in Amazon, and most of the lights you can find them on Amazon. So that's a good place to go to for them.
Okay.
So this is the grow lights. This is the actual shelf that I have. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers. And of course, when you get the grow lights, they're not going to come pre-made for your shelf. So you'll have to.
We are not able to see the other screen. Kanad, can you please switch to the other one? We need to see Rani presenting.
Yeah, just a minute. Yep.
So yeah, so this is the shelf, the metal shelf. It has 4 tiers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I've placed the grow lights, which are a little longer than the shelf width. And that was for a reason, so that even the plants on the end will get adequate light. The first one needs any kind of securing because it just rests on the top. The bottom ones require a little bit of, like a hack. You need to somehow figure out how you're going to safely, securely kind of, tie it to the shelf. So as you can see, it came with this chain, and then I wrapped it around the bar here and added a tie. And these LED lights are extremely light. They're very light, so they are not going to take much effort to set them up on your shelf. So I did that on both sides, and you can see even here, it's the same way on all the shelves. And then they come with these switches, so you can switch them on and off depending on which shelf the plants are placed on. So that's a easy way to kind of control the lighting in your shelf. This is that. The next one is the heat mat. So I went with the Vivosin heat mat. It's pretty adequate for my purposes. If you need more than one, you can go ahead and do that as well. But this was more than adequate. It comes with this pluggable wire, and so you can plug it into the outlet and it will start heating. And many people worry about whether it's going to get too hot or not, but they've made it for seedlings, so don't worry about that factor. It does a pretty good job in giving just the right amount of heat to your seedlings. So this is where I can place them. And depending on how I position it, I can do about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seedling trays at one shot. And then if you're worried about how the edges may not get it, you can kind of switch them around. So all of them get even amount of heat from the mat. And this was more than enough for me, because once the seeds started germinating, I would transition them to the grow lights, and I would put my next set of seedling trays on the mat. But depending on your needs, you can go for more than one if needed. So
before the sampling starts, after sampling comes, you transfer it to the grow light, or like you stay here.
yes, I'm coming to that point right now. Okay, I think I lost my. Okay, so just a minute. All right. So the next is the next two items is about Divya. I'm going to get back to you about that question. I just have it a little further down in my slides.
Okay. I just was curious.
Sure. So the next item is the digital thermometer and humidity meter. You can see it on the top shelf. It's just a little accessory that I found useful, because sometimes, even though we are temperature control inside the house and a thermostat, it's just handy to have this thermometer on your shelf just to see how the temperature is around your seedling area, especially if you're in a basement. You want to make sure the temperature is quite right. So it's just a handy accessory to have. It's about $15, and I got it from Amazon. The next one and the last one is the seed starter trays. The ones that I showed you just now are quite good in my experience. So they come with 12 cells in each tray, and they have this bottom holder. So when you water them, all the residual water is going to come out from the bottom. It also comes with these two handy tools, if you want to handle your seedlings in any way, and then also to help make these nice holes in there to put in your seeds. So I found this particular set to be pretty useful. It also comes with this dome. So if you want to create a greenhouse effect, and once you put your seeds in, you can do that quite easily. And I really don't use the closing of this. It really doesn't make much of a difference. But the condensation from the water goes back into the soil and helps it to be moist for a longer period of time. So for those reasons, I really like the trays with the domes. So that's about seedling trays. And so this is pretty much what you will be needing for your grow light setup. that's about it. So once you know, it's quite simple on getting this installed. Now the actual installing of the grow lights, we just went over it. We secure the LED grow lights to the shelf, depending on the shelf that you have. As I mentioned, it will depend on the setup that you get. If you have a similar shelf, then you can get the very same grow lights and it will work fine. But if the dimensions vary, then please buy the grow lights that are going to fit for your shelf. And of course, if you're going for your basement or you're just going to hang it over the seedlings on the ground, then you can go for the wider grow lights. So that is something that you will have to figure out based on how you set it up in your house. So you're selecting lights based on shelf width and number of shelves in this case. Also, I started setting them up and I started lighting them up as and when I got the seedlings under the grow lights.
Share.
So the next section is about the seedlings themselves, on how to go about starting from seed. So germinating the seeds. So we talked about the basics of seeds. So where you're going to get your good quality seeds from a reputed vendor. And then you're also going to get, you need to have a good seed starting medium as well. Now, this is one brand that I found really good. It's the Sungrow Black Gold seedling mix. It has the right amount of moisture in it. I've noticed that most of the seed starting mediums that I found in stores tend to have material that is very dry, even when you open them up.
Need to reshare the screen.
Just a minute. Trying to reshare my screen. Sorry about that. Okay. Coming to that section. There we go. So germinating seeds. So this is a good brand to have for the seed starting medium, Black Gold seedling mix. I found that it has the right amount of moisture and it also retains water much better than the ones I found in the regular gardening stores. So you may want to see if you can get a hand on this one. But as a general rule of thumb, if you are open to doing it, you can get a mix of peat moss or cocoa peat, then vermiculite and perlite. So these three items added in the ratio 3:1:1 is also a very good seed starting medium. So the perlite is going to be helpful in the aeration of the medium, while the vermiculite helps to retain moisture for a longer period of time. And you also need to get something to fill up the entire tray in terms of mass, and that will be provided by the peat moss or the cocoa peat. So 3:1:1, peat moss or cocoa peat, vermiculite, and perlite. That's a good combination to have as well. And then once you fill up your seedling trays with the seed starting medium, the next step is to sow the seeds into the tray, into each cell. And so you should go for at least 2 to 3 seeds per cell, and depending on the size of the seed. If they are from a reputable vendor and you know the germination rate is good, you can just go with one. There's no problem with that. But if you want to make sure, you can do at least 2. I would do 2, even if they are from a good vendor, just because you don't want to spend all that time and not have a seedling in that cell. And then, of course, if you have 2 seedlings in a cell, you can separate them out into individual cells at a later point in time. And if you are a little doubtful about your seeds, you can go for 3 to 4 as well. Once the seeds are in your tray, the next step is, of course, to water it thoroughly and also make sure that they are draining thoroughly. So once you do that step, then you don't have to like water it for about at least 3 days, I would say. Once you have done the draining of the water and you've placed it in its holder and you've put the dome on top, labeled it, now the time is to place it on the heat mat. The location of your heat mat needs to be in a slightly shady or a dark area, because as you may know, seedlings like the darkness. So the temperature from the base of the heat mat and then the darkness kind of stimulates the seed to germinate faster. So find a place in your house where it's dark and you can place the heat mat there and place your seedling trays over there on it. Now, this is a hack that I found was very useful. It's an alternate to the heat mat and the seedling tray, but it works equally well if you're open to trying it. And that is to use this setup that I have, which is a bean sprouter. Most houses, so you can have like a seed starter setup with this kind of a contraption. It is a bean sprouter. Most of your kitchens probably have it. And all you need is a wet kitchen towel. So once you have something like this, you take the seeds and then place them, roughly about like in a matrix. Couple of seeds. If the seeds are too tiny, you can place 2. And if they are slightly bigger, you can just have 1. And then all you have to do is fold it up, place them in your seed sprouter, which goes into another dark vessel, which kind of holds it. And then you place this whole thing in your oven with the light on. So what that does, it stimulates the greenhouse kind of an environment. So you have the moisture there, you have the darkness, and you have the heat coming in from the oven lights, which simulates the same thing as a heat mat with the seedling trays. So this can be your alternate, like if your heat mat is full of trays and you want to still have seedlings seed sprouting, then you can use this setup as well. And I found in some cases, this one germinates even faster than the seedling trays. So it's just one of those things that I found was a good alternative to starting your seeds. And once the seeds sprout inside your bean sprouter, the next step is to put them in a medium, just like you did with the seedling trays, and keep them under the grow lights, and they should come out just fine. Now, after this step of placing your seeds in the seedling tray on the heat mat, now it's a game of waiting. So it's not going to sprout for at least 3 days. But after that 3rd day, it's a good idea to check the seedling trays every day. Make sure there is no germination, or if it is germinating, then we should do the next step, which is to transition it to under the grow lights. So seedling care. So once you notice that there is germination, which is usually along the whole tray, if you don't have good seeds, you may see that it is inconsistent germination. But if majority of the seeds have germinated, then you should transition them to under the grow lights immediately. Don't wait too long for this step, because if you do, then you may end up getting lanky seedlings, like you see in this second picture. This particular seedling is a little long compared to the others, probably sprouted before the others, and it has become lanky and looking for sunshine. So when you see something like this, all you can do is like gently press the seedling back into the medium and try to get it shorter in terms of the stem length. And so from that point on, it should still come out fine. So that's one of the hacks for taking care of lanky seedlings. The next step in seedling care is to make sure the water doesn't dry, the medium doesn't dry out completely. So you can check that by looking at the top of the medium. And if it looks dry, you can take a spritzer and start to wet the medium. So that would be one way of just keeping your soil moist and your seeds from drying out. Okay, so once you place them under the grow lights, you need to keep the lights on for at least 10 to 12 hours. And sometimes it's recommended even 12 to 14 hours. I found that 10 to 12 hours was more than adequate. When I went to bed, I would just switch off the lights. And then when I woke up in the morning, I would turn them on. So 10 to 12 hours is a pretty good baseline. So here are some samples of the seedlings. On the top left, you can see the tomato saplings. The top right, the chilies and the bell peppers. The bottom left, there are some basil, Thai basil and Italian basil. And then on the bottom right, you can see some of the chilies saplings coming up. These were all spring seedlings earlier this year. The next step is maintaining the seedlings. So we have migrated, or we've come forward from the germination stage on the heat mat. The seeds have sprouted and you have transitioned them to the grow lights. The seedlings are growing bigger and they have reached a stage like maybe this, or a stage like this, where they are like about 3 to 4 inches tall, or I would say around this stage, 3 to 4 inches, when you start seeing the appearance of the true leaf. So you have the cotyledon and you have 2 leaves coming up first, and then after that stage, you're going to start seeing the true leaves, the 3rd and 4th leaf, and more leaves after that. So when you see the true leaves, that's the time you need to do some maintenance for the seedlings. The first one being adding a diluted amount of fish fertilizer. And if you're averse to the smell of fish, you can also go with compost tea on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. So this really helps your seedlings to start really growing well. The nitrogen in these concoctions works really well for the seedlings to grow. So the next step is when your seedlings are growing even bigger. So when they are in kind of this stage or this stage here, you can sense that they are kind of outgrowing the small cells in the tray. So when they reach that stage, it's time to transition them to a bigger pot. Now the pots that you see in this picture are really big. This is stage 3, I would say, because I was doing some experiment with this and keeping it at home for a longer time. But traditionally, I would go with the size of pot, which you find in like gardening stores. So this is a typical size that you would find, and you have some more over here. These sizes would work too. So when the seeds are about this length tall, as I see in this picture, this sample, you can transition the whole thing from the tray into the pot, and you fill the pot with a good potting soil medium. So the medium for your pots, yes.
What size is this?
I'm sorry?
What size of pot is this?
I don't know the exact dimension of it, but about 4 inches,
Okay.
4 to 5 inches tall. And these are the sizes that you find typically when you go and buy a plant in your gardening center.
Okay.
So those small sized pots. I don't have the exact size of it, but I think everybody will know when they get it in your local gardening store.
Okay.
About 3 to 4 inches. And the medium that you're going to use to fill these pots can be a combination of vermicompost or the black cow compost, which you can find pretty easily in gardening stores. You can also find earthworm castings, nitrogen from blood meal, and wood ash is also a very good nutrient to add to your potting mix. I usually make wood ash from leftover backyard sticks and twigs. When you burn and you get the residual ash, that's a very good nutrient to add to your potting mix. So it enriches the soil medium and it helps your plant to grow stronger, your seedling. The final step after you have grown your seedlings to this point is the transplanting. Now, this is also a step that is different when compared to growing seedlings outdoors versus indoors. The seedlings, if you're growing them outdoors, are already kind of used to the weather elements outdoors. But when you're growing seedlings indoors, they are being protected. They are living in a protected environment. So this step of transitioning them outdoors is very essential before you actually plant them in the raised beds. So once the seedlings are about 4 to 6 inches tall with a good number of leaves, you see your stalk is sturdy and strong, you can start to transition them as is outdoors for a few hours every day. And preferably the morning sunlight from morning till noon. Once it reaches noon and after, it tends to get stronger, and that may not be something that your seedlings will be able to cope with. So it's best to subject them to the morning sunshine and then bring them into the shade, and then not to forget, bring them back indoors if you're doing spring seedlings, because night temperatures will still be cold. Also, when you take them out, make sure it's a normal day without any extreme weather conditions. So those are things as a gardener, I guess you'll already be knowing. So just make sure when you transition the seedlings, it's on a good day. I found the greenhouse setup was an advantage to have at this point, because when I transitioned my spring seedlings, I was able to house them in my greenhouse and not have to worry about bringing them back into the house. But then this is definitely an optional thing, not at all necessary. You can just bring them into the house once you have let them out for a few hours. And once they have hardened for a week or two, you've transitioned them outdoors and brought them in, and they have kind of gotten used to the weather elements outdoors. Then you can think of actually planting those seedlings in your raised beds or wherever your growing area is. As a rule of thumb, it's after the last frost date in spring, which is kind of mid to third week of April. And so that's the time that you can transition or actually plant your seedlings into the ground.
Watch for the last frost date, right?
I'm sorry?
Watch for the last frost date.
Yes, the frost date in April for the spring crop. For the fall, I would say you will need to look at the lowering temperatures. So for the fall crops, usually when the temperature is around 70s and 80s is a good time to start planting them in the raised beds, not if it's higher than that. Fall plants don't like very hot weather. So you'll have to wait for the weather to cool down for them to be transplanted into your raised beds. It also depends on what you're transplanting. There are some that will take the summer heat, like Brussels sprouts, for example. But there are others like cauliflower and cabbages and radish and spinach that like cooler weather. So you'll have to wait for the weather to cool down before you sow the seeds outdoors or you transplant seedlings from indoors to outdoors. Now, the plants on this slide are the ones that I had transplanted or grew outdoors, but they were grown from the indoor seedlings. So I was very happy with the results. I mean, I hadn't seen such luxurious growth. The one that you see here on the left is the chili plant with very good produce, and the plant was huge and the leaves were lush. I was very happy with this. I had never had this much success with a chili plant before. The one in the middle are the eggplants. They were also much healthier, they were stronger. And the one that you see in the middle of those eggplants is the purple basil, which was also from Grow Light seedlings. And the one on the right are the tomatoes, one of the tomato plants, which tend to grow well anyways. Some of the produce from those seedlings. On the left, you can see the Thai eggplant, the purple basil in the middle, the Turkish eggplant on the right, 3 varieties of chilies from mild, medium to hot, and some of the Hansel eggplants on the right. A few more pictures of the yield and the produce from the spring seedlings grown indoors. And the last section is about the fall prep. If you're planning to have your grow light setup ready for growing fall seedlings, this is the time to do it. Since I already have a setup, I'm planning to grow my fall seedlings indoors and see how that goes. It's going to be a first time for me as well for the fall season, but I'm thinking it'll succeed. It'll be pretty good. So for the fall, there are a variety of seeds that you can grow from cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, spinach, Swiss chard, collards, and a lot of varieties to grow in fall. So what you need to do is purchase the required materials for your grow light setup. Find an area where you want to set it up, and then install the grow lights. Get all the other items like heat mats and seedling trays, seedling medium, the seeds, of course, and you can start your setup for fall. Besides those, you will probably also need a good seed starting calendar for just to know when to start the seeds. Usually the seed packs, if you get it from good vendors, will tell you when to start them indoors on the back of the pack. Or if you read the description of the seed on their website, even that will let you know when to start them indoors. But a general rule of thumb is end of July through September. You can start your indoor seeds, and once they grow to a stage where they're ready to be planted outdoors, and also noting the temperature outdoors, you can transplant them, which is somewhere around 6 to 8 weeks from the point or from the time you start the seed germination. Here's a picture of some of the plants that I had in my last winter growing session. These were from seedlings grown outdoors, but this time I'm planning to grow them indoors just because I had a little trouble with the pests, trying to save them from pests, and I lost many of the seedlings to pests outdoors. So I'm thinking to do them indoors this time. And here are some pictures of the winter crop from that season. Kohlrabi, turnips, beets, greens, curly cabbage, broccoli, some radish. So I would attribute the success to good seeds and also growing seedlings at home. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope you guys found it easy enough to go ahead and try this setup, because I, for the longest time, thought it's going to be too tedious and I hadn't gone into it. But I would like to say that it's not at all that. It's much easier. And last but not the least, I would like to mention a special note of thanks to members in the Atlanta Garden Group who were instrumental in for me to learn about all this. and also Uma Shashikant for helping me with the seedlings, knowledge about seedlings, and Manjari for giving me the inspiration to go ahead and do the grow light setup. So just wanted to mention these folks. I think I'm done with my presentation, Divya. I think. Are there any questions?
Really, it was a very good informative session. Like, yeah, as I told you initially, I was like how I'm going to handle all the seedlings, and it was a very difficult part. Like when I started my gardening, I'm a very new gardener. Actually, I failed in my seedlings. So yeah, this gave us a more information how to have a strong seedlings done. So hopefully, I'll succeed this time.
Yes, I mean, I would take my time. I mean, as a new gardener, I would definitely say that you can start off by buying saplings if you're not, courageous enough to do this, but and take it slowly. I mean, it's like you can have the setup, but don't expect 100% results the first time itself, and learn from what you're doing, and then it'll be better the next time around for sure.
Yeah, sure. That's like real true. We have few questions from our participants today. Purnima has asked, like, what kind of soil are we going to use for samplings? That has been answered. Actually, you just gave a brief intro to it.
Yes.
Uh, the one Babu, one of our participants, like have asked, like, can you suggest what seedling should be prepared for fall harvest, and in fall, what will be for the winter harvest? So, yeah, what should he start now for the fall, and what he should start in fall for winter?
Okay. I would say for winter, you have a variety of options. I had mentioned some in one of my slides. There's the broccoli, the cauliflower, the cabbages, the turnips, the kohlrabi. All of those are going to be over winter. So you're going to have success with them if you want to do the winter ones. Now, the other ones like radish, spinach, and some of the I wouldn't say carrots. Carrots still need overwintering. They do well, but then I know there are some varieties of carrots which will give you an early produce. So you can go to the vendor's website and you will know by reading the description if they are the ones that grow early or can harvest early, or they need to be overwintered and harvested after in spring. So I would recommend that they go to the website where they're buying the seed and read the description to know, which ones are for the fall harvest and which ones are winter harvest.
Okay, thank you, Rani. And we have one more quick question, like how to promote a healthy root system for the seedlings. This was a question from Sampath. Like
Okay.
how do we get that strong seed roots?
I have found that the medium that I use has worked really well for it. After the initial seed starting medium, when I transition them to the next bigger pot, the medium that you use there, and what you add to it is one of the important things to keep in mind for a stronger root system. And that includes the fish fertilizer that I had mentioned, the compost tea, then also small amounts of nitrogen from blood meal. That's also an option. Vermicompost. Vermicompost works really well. If you are doing vermicomposting at home, then a handful of vermicompost in that potting mix makes those plants come alive really well and with a good root system. So I would say a few of those is what will help with the root system.
Okay, that's more informative actually, Rani. Rani, let's go with the last question. Like, is it okay to have much sunlight indoors to set up grow lights? I too had this question. So when you're setting up the grow light, should it be next to the windows or anything like that, or it could be anywhere in the house?
I mean, I guess typically, since you have the grow lights, the light from those grow lights is more than adequate for your seedlings. But if it is next to a window, I guess if you have bright sunshine coming through, then maybe You can shut off your grow lights and just use the sunshine coming in. So it's a matter of choice, I guess. I mean, how you want to handle that. But the grow lights will be more than adequate for the plants. You don't need to be next to a bright window for it.
That hopefully they got that answer, Rani. Rani, thank you so much for this more informative webinar session. Like really, like we learned a lot from you. So hopefully, like everyone has got like more knowledge on how to do their seedlings. Thank you
No
so
problem.
much.
Thank
Kanak,
you.
Can you please, Sandesh, can you please? Sorry, Pankaj, can you please go to the slide 9, please? And thank you all for joining this session. Like here, like we have few information that is being shared about our green cell, and these are the projects that you see in our screen. There are a few projects that we are working on. Our volunteers are participating active in Alpharetta City Plant a Row initiative. Here's gardeners commit to grow their own food for pantry. And this event is local to North Atlanta Shrubs. If you have an organic kitchen garden, and you wish to donate the excess growth, please do contact us for more information. And also, we also have a utensil bank, which you can borrow the utensils for free when you host any party at home or outside. Our volunteers are also actively involved in neighborhood glass collection for recycling and organizing food rescue from grocery stores and restaurants. Please contact us for more information. A couple of more recent initiatives. Go to the next slide, please. If you want to learn more, learn how to compost, reach us to us, and like we will pair you with a buddy who can help you in learning how to compost in a right way. Want to reduce the trash to generate at home? Join us, and we will help you to weigh the trash you currently generate and show you simple ways to help you reduce the trash. And once again, like I wanted to thank Rani for like all the information that she passed on with the strong seedlings and for the better produce. Yes, we do. With all the points that she had told, yes, we are going to have a better produce next season. Please visit us at website, Facebook, or Instagram at Greencell ATL, or to know more about our upcoming events. We also have a YouTube channel where you can find recordings of today's webinars as well as earlier webinars. If you would like to donate towards our cause, you can find the donate button on our website. We would like to request everyone to fill a 1-minute survey to let us know how we did. It helps us get better in our future. Our next webinar is on September 12th. Next slide. Yeah, it's on September 12th with Seth Gunning. The session is titled For Solar Energy, Clean and Green. And looking forward for the next webinar. So hope you all join and get more information on how the solar energy works and how it is going to help us in future. Thank you so much for joining this afternoon. Enjoy your evening. Bye. Thank you, everyone.